So the market is not confident. The economy is not going well. And the worst news, I suppose, of all, to give you Mel Stride this morning, very good morning to you, is that apparently Rachel Reeves is going to be in for the long haul.
Well, that's what we're told today, Mike. That's the latest, is that the Prime Minister's going to have her there until the general election. It's just a great shame that when he was asked that question by Kemi Badenoch at the dispatch box at PMQs, he chose not at that point to apparently stand behind her at all, which is one of the reasons why the markets reacted the way that they did. And you're right, when bond yields go up, it sounds a rather abstruse thing for most listeners, but what it actually translates to is in higher borrowing costs for our country, and we all end up paying for it.
Yeah, exactly right. And this is the thing. I spoke to Wes Streeting earlier today, and he said, we all have bad days at the office, and, we've all got our right to private life and all that. Well, that's all very well up to a point, but not when you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, not when you are sitting there being filmed and having that film beamed around the world, when you represent the chief of the Exchequer of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And whenever you start bursting into tears, I'm afraid it makes the markets very jittery.
Well, it does, but it speaks, I think, Mike, to a broader issue here, which is the utter mismanagement of the economy. And we have seen that in the last 24 hours or so around welfare. A welfare bill, which whilst it was going through the second reading debate, got suddenly gutted of just about everything in it.
Yeah.
In order to stave off a rebellion at a cost of about £4 billion. If you add that to the U-turn on winter fuel payment, that's another 1.25. You're up over £5 billion. That money's going to have to be found. And I'll tell you how it's almost certainly going to happen, is that come the autumn, at the budget, the Chancellor will be putting taxes up again. And that's going to be borne by hard-working people right up and down our country, I'm afraid.
And the problem we're going to have now, and I said this the other day, is that, because of the backbench Labour MPs, the lefties in the party, we can no longer have a conversation about whether people are actually in receipt of benefits that they shouldn't have, because their line basically is that everybody who's on PIP deserves it. When clearly the system is broken and there's far too many people on it getting far too much money when they shouldn't be getting it. I mean, I've had a litany of people writing to me over the last few days telling me about members of their family who are on it, various other people who shouldn't, that they know who are friends of theirs who are on it. There's millions of people on this stuff, this kind of subsidy from the government, and it's quite addictive, and it needs to be stopped somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to arrest the rise in the welfare bill. When we were in power, and I was Secretary of State at Work and Pensions, we saved $5 billion from that bill, and the OBR said that almost 500,000 people, fewer people, would be going on to those long-term sickness and disability benefits, and we had big plans for much bolder reform going forward. Yeah. All of it well thought through, rather than scrabbling around at the last minute to find some cash because they run out of it, which is what the story is around Labour's so-called welfare reform. But you know what, Mike? The biggest problem that was demonstrated over the last 24 hours or so is this government does not have the capacity to deliver on tougher decisions, okay? So when it comes to, we hear all this story about they're going to sort the health service out, etc. Well, you've got to deliver. You've got to grip. You've got to, have a united parliamentary party, and they have demonstrated that that is just simply not there.
Yeah, well, again, when I asked Wes Streeting how he was going to fund this new neighbourhood and health service, he didn't really answer it. They specialise in not answering questions. They specialise in banging on about, achievements like, 500 breakfast clubs in Britain and, 4 million appointments for the NHS, which I'm very reliably informed by most of my listeners and viewers that are appointments that are made and then cancelled.
Yeah, well, if you look at the appointments, actually, you'll find that that's not dramatically different from the general situation that there's been over the last couple of years, for example. But look, the big points here are that this government has mismanaged the economy. It talked down the economy when it got into office. It taxed the living daylights out of businesses. It borrowed and spent a lot of money. It stoked up inflation, kept interest rates higher for longer. We're now paying on our national debt, Mike, about 100 billion a year. That's twice what we spend on defence. And if you add all those things up, and then the anemic growth that we've got in this country as a consequence, you're heading for ever more financial pressure. And we're going to see that, I'm afraid, in the autumn, almost certainly by way of higher taxes on hard-working people up and down the country, because this government has taken the wrong choices.
Yeah, and I think people are going to be even more unhappy about that than ever. Good to talk to you, Mel. Thanks very much indeed. Good to see you. Mel Stride there, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, saying that more taxes are coming. I don't think we can pay any more taxes, can we? There's going to have to be some kind of popular revolt in this country. This from Kevin in Southampton. Mike, like everything this government do, they talk a good game, but on the ground, it never actually happens. My appointments are regularly cancelled and then rebooked. And Nick says this, morning Mike, what absolute claptrap Streeting is talking. If it was a personal matter, she wouldn't be at work. More lies. She shed no tears when she screwed the pensioners, so good riddance to her. Well, the question is it good riddance to her? Here's Keir Starmer talking on Virgin Radio about keeping Friday nights free.
I think you must have asked me how are things going to change, and I said, well, the one thing I'm going to try and do is keep Friday evening free, because Vic and the kids and I always try a Friday evening, just the four of us. I think it's really important. And I think I said to you, I'm going to really try to keep that 6 o'clock slot. And then there was an onslaught where everyone said, outrageous, he won't do any work as a Prime Minister, etc., etc. It was all a bit silly, but we were in the middle of an election when lots of silly things are said. But I can report back a year on in that my attempt to keep the Friday night clear hasn't worked very well.
Yeah, so that was another lie then, because he said that he would try. That's what I think I remember saying. I would try not to work on a Friday. No, he was very categorical about it. He actually said, I never work beyond 6 o'clock on a Friday night. That was what he said. I'm not going to do it, no matter what. And now he said he was just going to try to do it. It just goes on and on, doesn't it? Dan Hodges is here, commentator of the Mail on Sunday. Dan Hodges, I don't know what to say to you. Because I've literally lost any kind of semblance of sense after yesterday. I said to somebody last night, I said I never thought I'd be actually planning to do a show tomorrow morning talking about Chancellor of the Exchequer blowing up the markets because she burst into tears while Keir Starmer was delivering his Prime Minister's questions. And then it turns out he's just admitted to Chris Evans that he didn't even know she was crying.
I've been working in politics for over 30 years, and I've just never seen anything like I saw yesterday. No. This is just quite incredible. And there's a sense of sort of disbelief.
Yeah, totally.
Just still going on this morning. People are still trying to get to grips with it. But just on what you said there, this is what I do not understand. So yesterday, I was speaking to some Tory MPs who were in the chamber relatively early for PMQs.
Right.
And Rachel Reeves came into PMQs relatively early. This is when she had the first conversation, argument, if you like, with Lindsay, which obviously has some bearing on what happened. And Tory MPs were so concerned about how she appeared then. I was told this is like 15 minutes before PMQ started. Right. That they contacted their own whips and said, there is an issue here. Rachel Reeves is in the chamber and she is in tears.
Right.
And we don't know what to do. We don't know how to react. Should we be picking up on it? Firstly, they were disturbed on a human level.
Yeah, right.
Didn't know how to react. They didn't know, should they be pointing it out? Was it, that was the Tories. So how did the Prime Minister not know that there was an issue with his own Chancellor?
Well, I just don't believe it. It's not credible, is it?
It's just, I find the whole thing absolutely incredible. I did speak to members of the government yesterday who were on the front bench, who were sitting a little bit of a way along from Rachel Reeves, who genuinely said, I genuinely didn't know what was going on, because their focus is, in front and the opposite. Right. Opposite numbers. But that side of it, I just find incomprehensible. And that's before you get on to the broader issues.
Exactly. There's definitely footage that I've seen of people behind Rachel Reeves, sort of patting her on the shoulder at one point, and appearing to give her something, which I think is chewing gum. There are clearly people there who know that she's upset. And if he gave an interview last night, Starmer, to Nick Robinson, which I don't know if you saw on the news at 10, in which he said, we are so close, we're practically in lockstep with each other, we're practically, like Tweedledum and Tweedledee, we're never apart, our policies match together, we're behind each other all the time, we support each other. If you're that close to somebody, whether it's a work colleague or a friend, and he claims it's both, surely you would know that she's got some kind of personal issue going on, and you would say to her, maybe you should sit this one out and just don't worry about coming into the chamber.
But exactly, but as I've said in my article this morning, there is a big debate going on. There was a big debate going on in Westminster. There will continue to be a big debate to find out, sort of in inverted commas, what was the real reason Rachel Reeves was crying.
Yes.
If it's a personal issue, what was the personal issue? If it wasn't a personal issue, what were the politics, or what were the issues behind all that? I mean, there is absolutely no doubt, and I have had it confirmed by multiple sources, as have other journalists, that she did say to Lindsay Hoyle, I'm under so much pressure, and was that the basic root cause? But frankly, it doesn't matter, because, I mean, you've just explained how Keir Starmer says how close he is to Rachel Reeves. He has a duty of care to her.
Yeah.
Now, she was, whatever the issue is, it had such an effect on her well-being that yesterday she sat in the House of Commons chamber in front of the entire political establishment, and as she was well aware, in front of the entire country.
Well, and the world, really.
She wept openly. Now, this is not a moment where you go, oh, yeah, just one of those things, and everybody just carries on. He's got a duty of care to her, and he's also, some would argue more importantly, he's got a duty to the country, which is, we all know these are incredibly, intolerably stressful jobs. You simply cannot have a Chancellor sitting on the government front bench in tears, and then have the ensuing chaos we had yesterday, where Downing Street doesn't know what the hell was going on.
Well, they put out a tweet, didn't they, of Starmer, and boasting about how great he had done at PMQs, which they then deleted when they realised that she was in the background weeping.
They had no idea what was going on. Downing Street advisors, after PMQs, were having to refer journalists to Rachel Reeves' own staff, because Downing Street, still at that point, had no idea what was occurring. Rachel Reeves' own team, for the best part of an hour, quite clearly had no idea what was going on themselves. No. And in that vacuum, obviously, mayhem ensued, and the rumours were going round. Right. There were two rumours going around. One, that he'd sacked her. The other was that she resigned. As a result of which, chaos then ensued on the financial markets.
Yeah.
You cannot run a country like this.
No, absolutely
it's
right. It is absolutely insane. And she walked out, I understand, of the chamber, hand in hand with her sister, Ellie, who's also a big wig in the Labour Party, in the Labour government. So it's not as if she's doing all of this stuff out of context, or that it's in secret. It's all out in the open. She's literally wearing her heart on her sleeve. Whatever it is that's ailing her, she's doing it all in public, which seems bizarre.
But obviously, as I say, that was obviously a moment of whatever the issue is. It was a moment of significant trauma and upset for Rachel Reeves, unprecedented in modern British politics. We've never seen anything like that before. Is she at work today?
Well, another.
Is she going to be at work for the rest? What is she? Is she just? What do we do? Is everybody just going to carry on?
Yeah. Well, I asked Wes Streeting. I started my talks with Wes Streeting. The first time he's ever been on my show, which I also found quite interesting. I don't know why they've suddenly decided to do that. But I said, "Is she all right?" was my first question to him, and to which he said, "She's a great woman. She will bounce back." And I don't know what she's bouncing back from.
That's fine, and obviously there are significant issues. She, in my view, needs to be given the time and the space and the opportunity to do just that, to bounce back.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, as I say, Keir Starmer has a duty of care to her, and he has a duty of care to the country. So it seems to me self-evident that at least for the short term, Rachel Reeves needs to be removed from the pressure of that role and given the space to deal with whatever issues she has. And then once that's done, once they are dealt with, and if they are sufficiently dealt with, then there is nothing to prevent her returning to the front line of politics. But as I said, this situation where everybody is suddenly expected to go around now this morning pretending the unbelievable events of yesterday didn't happen is, frankly, to me, just incredible.
Absolutely. Let me just play you, because we played that clip of Starmer saying what he thought he said last year about not working on Friday nights. Here's what he actually said in the original interview last year.
On a Friday, I've been doing this for years, I will not do a work-related thing after 6 o'clock. Pretty well come what may.
Yeah, I will not. That's not what he said. So today, again, he's rewriting history again. He goes, I'm pretty sure I said I will try not to work on Friday night. He said, I will not work on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that round. I remember saying at the time, look, this is just silly because whether he likes it or not, he's Prime Minister, so he's going to have to work on that Friday night.
Yeah, but this is typical of Starmer, though, so he pretends that he said something different, so it doesn't sound like he's contradicting himself.
But the thing I found most bizarre, actually, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't hear the whole interview, but I heard some of it, and obviously the clip you played, which was his happy, cheery, slightly weirdly upbeat demeanour.
Yeah.
You know, the issue today, the issue that people are asking in politics today is this. We were told that when Labour were elected, the grown-ups would be back in charge.
Yes.
And that serious people were now running the country. Now, I don't think anybody can objectively look at what's happened over the last 12 months, over the last week, and over the last 24 hours, and seriously argue that we currently have sensible people running the country. Right? Keir Starmer is literally unable to get through his flagship welfare reforms. We've got a situation where his Chancellor is in tears, as a result of which there was chaos on the financial markets. We've got a Chancellor who admitted he delivers speeches on major issues like immigration, doesn't really bother to read the speeches himself,
right,
doesn't really agree with what's being said. We've got a Prime Minister who openly admitted, yeah, I was dealing with NATO stuff, so I wasn't really giving my proper attention to the welfare bill.
Yeah.
This is what grown-up government looks like. This is what serious people look like. And the problem is, it's not going to get, none of this is going to get better. It's only going to get worse. Because the thing underpinning everything, Mel Strider is absolutely right when on the programme, underpinning everything is this. As a result of the chaos that we've had, in the budget, Rachel Reeves is going to have to raise taxes. Rachel Reeves is on camera, on record, saying she will not raise taxes. She's on record saying to the CBI, I will not come back for more tax rises. I will not come back for more borrowing. The public sector, the state is going to have to live within its means. And in a couple of months' time, she is going to have to break that pledge. And as soon as she breaks that pledge, what is left of her credibility is gone. What is left of Keir Starmer's credibility is gone. And what is left of the government's credibility is gone. That is the political reality we're facing.
Yeah. And there's no escaping it. There is no other road.
There is no escaping that.
I don't know what happens. I mean, do you think she's out before that, though? Now, because of what happened yesterday?
No, I mean, she should be. But even before yesterday, my own view was that he should move her, and he had to move her, but that he wouldn't have the political courage to move her. Now, as a result of what happened yesterday, as a result of the criticism of him yesterday, of him not showing any particular care of attention, for which there's been a backlash within the Labour Party as well as publicly. Obviously, he then rushed out, even though he had multiple opportunities to actually do it in the House of Commons Chamber, then rushed out belatedly and said, oh, no, she's here to stay, she's here to stay. No, Rachel Reeves is not, in my view, going anywhere, but that will create a major, and I actually think a terminal political problem for the government when we get to the budget. Because as I say, if he had moved Rachel Reeves, had then put in place another chancellor could concede mistakes were made, could concede that when Rachel Reeves gave the pledge not to raise taxes, she was unable to fulfil that pledge. but we've got now a different Chancellor, a different economic strategy. We're going down a different route. You could do all those things politically. You would take a hit for it politically, but you could construct a strategy around that.
It's a very bizarre time, I have to say.
When Rachel Reeves stands up and just says, "I lied," or taxes are going up, it will make all this stuff, the tiers and everything else, look like just
walk in the park. I know. It's quite incredible. Anyway, listen, Dan, we've got to go. We can talk about it for about 2 more hours, I think. But thank you very much indeed. Have a good weekend. Dan Hodges, commentator at Mail on Sunday.